Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the stream, folks. Welcome to the stream. Glad to have you here today. Today's topic is going to be why Chicago is going to go bankrupt. Why Chicago is going to go bankrupt, folks. So we'll wait here while we get a few more folks to join us. But I hope you're having a good day. It's November 30th, the last day of November. We're headed to December, and we're headed to the first day of winter here, which is December 20th. 20th of December is going to be the first day of winter. We've already gotten snow here, but it's officially not winter yet. So glad you could join us today. The topic of today is the migrants and why bankruptcy is next for Chicago. And I firmly believe this is going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back for Chicago. Okay, so if you don't know, there's several videos out there on the tube. I won't get into all the gory details, but Chicago has not owned their streets for many years. Yeah, let me say that again. Chicago has not owned their downtown city streets for many years. And by what I mean of that is many years ago, Richard Daley, the last of the Daley clan, decided to sell off parking meters and the parking spaces of Chicago to, I believe it was a pension fund at the time. Today it's owned by, I believe, Adu Babi. Yeah, the country of Adu Babi. And maybe partially by Canadian pension fund still. But Chicago, they sold it for, first of all, they sold it for like $1 billion. Shortly after they sold it, they did Inspector General did a review of the sale and found out it was actually worth 2 to 3 times that amount. At the time of the sale, Chicago was making like $25 million off parking. Today, Chicago pays the entity that owns those meters twice that for all the meters that they have to take offline for parades, for construction, and things of that sort. Does that make sense to you guys? So back in the early or late 90s, they were making $25 million off parking, as poorly as they were managing. But then keep in mind, back then, the rates for parking were actually reasonable. As soon as they sold it to this entity, they quadrupled or even more now. I haven't paid for parking in Chicago for many years, but the rates are variable depending on where you're at. So, if you're in the Loop or Michigan Avenue, you're going to pay primo rates. And even when you're out in the far areas outside of downtown, you're still paying a good amount of change. And last I heard too, if they catch you not paying for parking, the ticket's like $100 or more. So a parking ticket is not cheap anymore, and just parking is not cheap. So they spent that $1 billion that they got for that. It's gone, folks. They got rid of that. I think Rahm Emanuel ended up selling, or not selling. He ended up spending all that money. He used that to cover his budget deficits in the years that he was in office. Yeah. Chicago doesn't have a revenue problem. It has a spending problem, folks. Same for Illinois. They spend way too much money that they do not have. So they don't have a revenue problem. It's just a spending problem they have. And the sale of the downtown parking has enabled our politicians to continue their spending ways. So it's not only that they sold, they also sold the Chicago Skyway, which for you folks that don't live in Chicago is a quick route along the lake that south of White Sox Park, a couple of miles, you can get on a road that takes you from the south side of Chicago to pretty much halfway through Indiana. Takes you right to the Gary Airport pretty quickly. It's probably a 25 mile road that they sold that off too. I think today it's owned by some Australian. It just got sold again. It was owned by a Canadian pension fund, and they ended up selling it to an Australian pension fund now. I don't even know. I haven't been on that road in many years. Most of it's a big bridge, so whoever owns it's gonna have to pay some money to fix it and keep it up. Let's see how much it costs here. Now, if you're a semi, it can cost you anywhere up to $38. For a car, when they have peak time, well, I guess it's the same price here. So it's $6.60 for a car to go across. But that adds up if you're using that on a daily basis, $6.60. Although you're getting, like I said, it's end to end is about a 25 mile road. So not too bad. But so there's revenue that Chicago doesn't get. There's two things. They were talking about selling Midway Airport and also O'Hare at one point, but that's died down after the report came out that whatever they did sell, they sold at such a discount that they messed themselves up. So there's one reason why Chicago will head to bankruptcy, because they just don't have the revenue anymore. They've jettisoned two of their top revenue streams. The parking thing was for 75 years, and the company that bought it broke even after like 10 years, I believe. So at this point, they're just making gravy at this point at these people that own the parking. And as I said before, Chicago is paying this company more than it got in revenue when they owned it. So go figure. The other thing is the Chicago pensions. There's like Teachers, there's 3 pension funds. There's teachers, there's the police, and then there's the Chicago Municipal Workers Pension Fund. All 3 of those are at somewhere between 20 to 25% funded. Now, when we're talking pensions, a pension should be funded at least 80%. That's ideally, if you talk to accountants and people, the bean counters, you're going to find out they like to have pensions funded somewhere around the 80% range. Granted, very few pension funds today are funded that way, but here we have Chicago, 20 to 20. They got 3 pension funds only funded 20 to 25%. Now, keep in mind that we've got police that are retiring at a huge clip now because they're not getting support by the mayor, and they're putting in new rules. They're making their job tougher and tougher. It's a tough job to be a cop in Chicago when you got all these rules you have to abide by. You can't chase people. You can't do this. You can't stop people unless you got a reason. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And our friend Lori Lightfoot, I think, added 2 or 3 more reasons, rules that the cops have to do that makes their job just that much tougher. Now, comment below if you got any thoughts on this, because we want to hear your thoughts. Once again, this is DJ Wonder Chrissy. I am a part of Land Cruiser Midwest. I hope you guys are enjoying this content. Today we're talking about why Chicago's going to go bankrupt. And we just gave you some background information on 2 major reasons, actually more. I mean, if you count the pensions, there's 3 different pensions, so we'll count each of those as one. And then the revenue sources that they sold off, Chicago Skyway and City of Chicago parking. So there's 5 things there, folks. 5 reasons on why Chicago can't make money like they used to in the olden days. And on top of that, they're going to spend 200. The city alone. This doesn't even include the state of Illinois. The city of Chicago, by their own account, as bad as their accounting probably is, they have admitted that it's going to cost them $255 million to take care of the migrants this year. $255 million of taxpayers' money is going to take care of people who are not even citizens of the United States, let alone citizens of the city of Chicago. They may live here, but they're certainly not considered citizens. So, where does that money come from, right? City of Chicago, every time they come up with a budget, and I think Brandon, shortly before August, was working on his budget. Again, they're usually $300 to $500 million, $300 to $500 million short every time he comes up with a budget. It's smoke and mirrors at this point. Smoke and mirrors. He's spending money like he's got it, and I'm here to tell you that Chicago doesn't have the money. They don't. They're broke. The only thing that he got going for him right now is O'Hare Airport and Midway, because they're making some revenue off that. Every time people fly out, they've got taxes on that. So that puts money into their coffers. O'Hare Airport is a revenue generating center that you would not believe. The amount of money and taxes that come rolling into that place are just phenomenal. Um, I mean, just like car rentals and hotel taxes and all that good stuff flows into the city of Chicago coffers is pretty fast. So as long as tourism is going okay, they're making money hand over fist from Chicago, O'Hare, and Midway. Um, and right now the transportation, the L and the buses and stuff are, for some reason, the federal government is chipping in big time. So they are doing some cleaning up of and fixing of the aging, very much aging infrastructure for transportation, but they got good old Uncle Sam that's throwing in hundreds of millions of dollars on a yearly basis to help with those projects. So um, any tax revenue that they get out of O'Hare is going right into their pocket. And as you all know, Chicago is one of the most corrupt cities to do work in. I had a friend whose dad worked in infrastructure, water infrastructure, and he said the only city, and this is before Detroit went bankrupt. He said the only city that was worse than Chicago for having to line the palms of people that you worked with to get a contract for the city was Detroit. Detroit was number one. Chicago was number two, he said. And they did a lot of business in Detroit and a lot of business in Chicago. And he said they had to grease palms like you would not believe. So, there's reasons why Chicago's going to go bankrupt, folks. They just don't get it. Politicians never want to terminate spending of any way, shape, or form. It's spend, spend, spend as quickly and as fast as you can. And while people aren't looking, you wonder where some of that money goes, right? I think people are starting to wake up to the fact that the tax dollars that are being spent frivolously by their government entities doesn't always make it to where it's supposed to go. So it kind of makes you a little ticked off, doesn't it? I'm glad, well, see, I'm glad that I'm not paying Chicago taxes. In Chicago, they keep real estate taxes somewhat reasonable, though now the areas like the south side of Chicago and the west side of Chicago where the Hispanics and the African American lives, some of those areas they've raised the taxes, and boy, those people, they squawked. They squawked. They cleaned up some of those neighborhoods. They started doing some major projects in those areas, and thus those areas started to see some gentrification, and as a result started raising real estate taxes. And people don't like that. They like you to spend money in their neighborhood, but they don't want you to raise their taxes, that's for sure. So that came out this year. The people in the west side of Chicago, Pilsen, oh my God, they got their tax bills, and they were surprised. I think what you're going to see too is all these commercial office buildings in the city of Chicago, the Loop, 30% empty. They're headed to 30%. I think last I heard, South Loop and Loop were like 25% empty. They're heading to that 30% like San Francisco has. Once you hit 30% empty in a building, it's almost like falling dominoes, folks. Falling dominoes. You just can't run a building with 30% vacancy. Right now, Michigan Avenue, the wonderful Michigan Avenue, the high rent district of retail in the heart of city of Chicago, is at a 30% vacancy. So they increased taxes there. They were starting to charge businesses extra money just to pay for the police and the security. That's a fact. They passed that. There wasn't much backlash, but they weren't happy about it. But all the businesses down there are paying extra in taxes for cops that just sit there. There's a lot of those cops that'll sit around Michigan Avenue and the Gold Coast. They'll be parked in a parking spot and they'll have their lights going on. And I've heard people say that if someone came in and robbed one of those stores, those cops couldn't go anywhere. They couldn't chase them. So what they do, they're a deterrent. They're nothing else. They have cop cars that sit on Michigan Avenue and I think Walton. They just sit there, and sometimes they turn their lights on so you can see that they're there. They're just a deterrent to the thieves should they want to come in and steal something in the middle of the day. So that's crazy, right? That's crazy. Why got a cop sitting there, and if someone were to rip something off, he couldn't do anything. Welcome to Chicago, folks. Welcome to Chicago. All right, so those are my reasons why I truly believe that Chicago is heading for bankruptcy sometime in the next 10 years. It's not going to happen overnight, but with progressive leadership like they have going on now, they have no choice but to go to bankruptcy, folks. Here's a guy right there, pointy-headed little guy there that all he wants to do is spend people's money as quickly as he can. So, over and out. DJ Wonder Chrissy. Like, share, subscribe. Look at all of our content, folks. We got a great pick list or watch list of migrant stuff. We do foodie stuff. We do car shows. We do casino stuff. We do a little bit of everything. And it's free to like and share and subscribe. So go ahead and do that if you would. It means a lot to us. It helps us with the algorithm. And it's DJ Wonder Chrissy over and out.